Hey everyone, Michael Pickens here, host of the Libertarian Leadership Academy weekday live stream where we interview libertarian candidates and activists doing amazing things around the country. Today we've got a candidate that has been on the show before years ago, and he's now running for state representative in California. He did run for president before, and he is an AI futurist and family capitalist. His name is Lars Mapstead. Welcome to the show, Lars.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so you were running for president before, but now you've decided to run for state representative in California. Why the switch? Why the change?
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I ran for president was that I wanted to get my message out to as many people as possible. The message
Hmm.
of libertarianism, of free markets, capitalism, and just that we have there's alternatives, right, to what the choices that were foisted upon us. And by running a national presidential campaign, I was able to get on lots of media, lots of podcasts, newspapers, Sirius XM radio, Fox News,
Hmm.
on and on and on. So people paid attention to what I had to say. If I would have run for city council, maybe I would have had a shot at winning, but like only 50 people in my town would have heard my message, right?
Agreed. Yep.
Whereas running for president, I literally, in 1 week's period of time, early in my campaign, I had 17 million reach on social media in a week, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not going to get that unless you're like playing at the top level. And just all that reach with the different radio stations. I was on radio in probably 20 different states or more, multiple times on Sirius XM. So anyway, I got the message out there, and so I I've been voting all my life in California, and sometimes there's a libertarian on the ballot, but more often than not, there's not. And
Hmm.
in recent years, it's become very sparse. The amount of people running for Libertarian Party on the ballot, especially for federal offices, is very few. I think there might be like 3 out of 54 congressional districts that we have right now running. There's not very many people running. At the California convention, we only endorsed, I think, 3 candidates. So maybe there's a couple
Okay.
more that are going to be on there, but it's not very much out of 54. Um, and the reason for that is because of the top two system that we have. Basically, you
Hmm.
spend a whole bunch of money and get a bunch of signatures to get on the primary ballot, and that's where you're going to die, at the kids' table. Basically, you don't actually make it onto the real election, right? And we all know
Yeah.
that the primary election is undervoted, right? Like the amount of people that show up is much less, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So basically, only the top two in California get to go on to the general election, and that could be 2 Democrats. It doesn't have to be a
Sure.
Democrat and a Republican. It's just the top two vote getters, right? So, and we already know before I even start running who's going to win this election. 70% of elections are already decided for Americans before they cast their first vote. That's just the way that the system is rigged against us. So I'm fully aware, just as I was during the presidency, that I have a Herculean long shot Hail Mary pass to become the House District CA 19 representative. So why the hell
Whoa.
am I running, right? Why the hell would I spend $1,700, get a bunch of signatures, spend a bunch of time to get on the ballot? And the answer is literally so that people have an option when they go to the ballot. They're like, oh, there's something different besides Republicans and Democrats. Maybe I'll find out what this guy is talking about. Maybe,
Yep.
and if my thing is if you saw 20 libertarians on your ballot, you'd be like, oh, wait, what's that? With one or two, you're like, okay, well, I don't really, it's noise, right? But if we had up
Yeah.
and down all the ballots all over America, that's what we need to get to be able to push libertarian ideals and philosophy, in my opinion. Um, Running for president helped this campaign already, because as soon as I announced, the local media picked up Lars Mapstead, previous presidential candidate, throws down the gauntlet against CA 19, right? Like, I wouldn't have gotten that. They would have paid no attention to me had I never run for president, right? So
Yeah.
the thing that I did during president worked. It got me attention. It's still getting me attention. So yeah, so basically I'm running to bring another voice to people, another option, because I don't feel represented. Uh, like, we were discussing earlier, I don't feel represented because I voted my whole life for Congress and 50, whatever, 40 years of voting. And I've never yet voted for somebody who was elected, senator or House member. I don't feel represented. I don't feel like my voice has ever been heard. Like, none of them have even come close to what my political orientation is at all. Like, they're so far off in the weeds that it's like, and that's true
So,
really for president, for Congress, for my state house. I mean, I don't feel represented by any of these people because let's face it, the majority of Republicans and Democrats are authoritarian, and
yeah.
they want to basically tell you how to run your life. They want to take the money out of your pocket. Yeah, they want to tell you how to run your life in different ways, but they're not libertarian. And so, I want to bring that to people, that you know how to live your life better than the government does, and we got to stop electing authoritarians who try to tell you they know what's best for you.
Absolutely. So if you're one of the 123 people watching live right now, if you have a question for Lars, go ahead and put it in the comments. So I agree with you 100%, right? I have not voted for a politician that has represented me even close, or that has won, right?
Yeah.
And gotten elected into office. And in Washington State, when I was chair of the LP, we had ran 34 candidates across the state. There was like 6 libertarians on the ballot, insurance commissioner and, school board commissioner, lieutenant governor, like all the way down. Like, and then Gary Johnson and, Bill Weld on the ballot. And that was the most success that we've ever had across the state of Washington, having multiple libertarian candidates on the ballot, showing a united front. And that's what we really need. We need more libertarians on the ballot, showing people that there are options, that not just options, but legitimate options. We have solutions when we're running, right? So what are some of the things that you are running on that you can dramatically improve the state of our country, because you're running for U.S. House?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to get back to the point that I already know that I'm probably not going to win. And so I can talk talking points. I can talk immigration and healthcare and all these kind of things. But
Okay.
if you're not going to win and you have no path to winning, shouldn't we focus on the things that keep you from having a path to win? Like, there's literally systems in place by the Democrats and the Republicans to stop anybody from competing against them, right? And so so we should really talk about how do we become more competitive, because that's really kind of the most important thing. I mean, I'm going to get a certain amount of votes. Literally, no one's going to read anything about me. They're going to vote for me based on either they already know me, or they're like, hate the other guy so much that anybody's better than the other guy, which is the way most people vote anyway, right? They don't act like, think about this. In still a number of states, there's straight ticket voting, where you click you click a box and it just votes for everybody who's either red or blue, depending on what your thing is. They don't read who the candidate is. They don't even care. Like, it's just, are they on my team? And I think there was literally an election this week where a Democrat signed up as a Republican, ran and won, literally because they had the R next to their name. They just switched, and there wasn't anybody else.
She had the mask on.
Yeah, I don't know if that was AI or BS thing, but I mean, that totally could happen, right? Even if it's fake, that totally could happen. And it's just because people are so busy, they don't want to like read ballot pamphlets, and like 80% of Americans don't care. They just want to click the button and be done with it and feel like they did their civic duty, right? Like, there's only 20% of the people are nerdy enough to actually read all the stuff, right? And unfortunately, I'm one of those guys, and I read all the things and try to pick the best. And then what do I get? I'm like, wow, these choices really suck. So, no,
Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
A turd sandwich and a douche.
Yeah, exactly. And so, while I was running for president, I really realized, that all the systems in America are rigged, whether it's healthcare, education, the national debt, the upcoming central bank digital currency. All these things are corrupt, rigged. The Federal Reserve, the IRS. It's all a game to support this bureaucratic behemoth of a state that should not exist, essentially. And so, while I was running, I came up with lots of different policy pieces, which are still available on my website, and I'm bringing up a new website for this House district. But what I realized was, look, the system for electing people is completely captured by two private corporations. The RNC and DNC are private corporations. They are not government entities. A lot of people think they're government entities, but they're not. They're private corporations, and they have not shareholders, but basically delegates are the shareholders and the board members, right? And they decide who's going to be the candidates, right? And we saw that in this last presidential election. We saw that there was a bunch of Democrats running, and some of them even won their primary against Joe Biden. And then Joe Biden's team said it doesn't matter because we don't count the primary. We don't take that into effect. And then at the end, they just appointed Kamala Harris, who never primaried at all, by the way, never was in one primary, but suddenly she's the nominee. So wait, how did they do that exactly? Oh, because they're a private corporation, they can just pick whoever they want. This is not the people pick during the primary, which leads me to one of the things that I'm pushing for is we should abolish primaries. Why are we as citizens paying for private corporations' internal elections, especially if they don't even use those results as the outcome? It's a farce. So we're literally spending tons of people's money for nothing, right? And the Republicans don't get a pass on this either because they're exactly the same. Private corporation, choose their candidate. Yes, they make machinations like, oh, look, you guys had a voice. The people have a voice in the system. No, I realized long before that I was being forced to choose between Clinton or Bush. And I was like, this is not a choice. This is an illusion of choice. I'm being forced these two crappy ass candidates. And like, they both suck so bad that you have to pick the lesser of two evils because there's no good choice, right? So this is why I'm running, is because I want to basically tell people, like, look, there's other choices. We could have a different system, but we have to change and unrig our election system before you're ever going to have a different choice between the two crappy people that we have right now, basically. And
your campaign slogan when you ran for president was "unrig the system," right?
Yep. So and go ahead.
No, I just brought up your website, votingrights.com. Can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely. So this is the result of me understanding that our election systems are rigged, right? This Voting Rights Foundation is a nonprofit that is geared toward educating people about ballot access laws, about proportional representation, about gerrymandering, all the ways that the two-party system uses to basically suppress the vote and keep people from having their voice heard, right? I'm a capitalist. I believe in competition. I believe that competition breeds excellence. And we don't have competition in our political parties right now at all. It's literally captured, and they just choose who they want to choose, right? So there's no incentive for these candidates to perform, right? A capitalistic system creates the incentive to perform, because if you don't perform, you're out of business. But these guys don't have to perform because they have an 80% reelection rate without showing up to the ballot. They don't have to perform for you. They don't even work for you. They work for the lobbyists. They work for the donors. They don't work for the people who vote for them. That's a sham, right? That is, you can just tell that that's a complete farce. And so what I see is that if people don't feel represented and people don't feel like they're being heard, we get political violence. And we saw this in Black Lives Matter, and we saw this on January 6th. Both the left and the right are not feeling like they're being heard. They're not feeling like they're being represented. And the only option they have when they don't feel like that's happening is they resort to violence. So the Voting Rights Foundation's mission is to stop political violence by changing our election system so that people feel that they're heard and that they're represented.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with the Voting Rights Foundation, what initiatives are you looking to push forward to help facilitate, uh, more accessibility
Yeah.
to voting, or
Yeah.
more, what's the mission?
So when I was running for president, I went to Maine because I had this plan to get electoral votes and cause a contingent election. And when I went to Maine, I said, "Hey, you're part of the plan because you're one of the two states that splits up your electoral votes, and so I want to really focus on Maine and Nebraska." And
Yep.
they said, "That's great, Lars, but there's a slight problem." And I'm like, "Okay, what's that?" Well, we don't have ballot access here in Maine. What do you mean you don't have ballot access? Yeah, we lost it. Well, how did you lose it? Well, the Secretary of State deleted all the libertarians off the voter rolls and said that they were stale voters. So they just deleted them all. Well, obviously those weren't stale voters; they were actual voters, and so we took it to the
Yeah.
court. The court said, "You're right; these weren't stale voters. She should have never removed them, but I'm not going to replace them." They effectively deleted the Libertarian Party from existence. Okay. And then what the rule is in Maine, you have to have 10,000 registered voters in order to be a minor political party and get
Okay.
ballot access. They had like 3,000. Okay. And they knew they weren't going to get to 10,000. So they went back to the state house and they petitioned the state house to reduce the ballot access law to 5,000 registered voters. And they thought they could probably get 2,000 more signed up, by the election. And they were actually able to get the state to reduce the ballot access law, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And then we basically went in and I tried to do petitioning, and that I knew that wasn't going to work, and so we wrote some checks and got some donors together, and we were able to get enough people to get that to the 5,000 that was needed, and we got ballot access back for Maine, minor party status, right? The chair of Maine at the time, Harrison Kemp, came to me during the campaign and was like, "Hey, I think I could do this same thing in like 10 other states. I could reduce the ballot access laws in 10 other states," right? And I was
Mhm.
like, "Wow, that's amazing." And so we started Voting Rights Foundation, which is a nonprofit and is only geared toward education because you're not allowed to do lobbying as a nonprofit. So
Yeah.
we're educating people on gerrymandering, proportional representation, and ballot access laws across the country. And we've created an index of the most robust um, data for ballot access laws across the country. And with help from Richard Winger and a whole team of people that have been working for many months on getting this data together. So we have the preeminent now data set for what it takes to get ballot access in every state. Um,
Nice.
so we're using that to educate people. But I realized we're not going to do anything unless we have a lobbying arm. So I created another nonprofit that's a 501c4, which is lobbying and because the government tells you how you can do stuff, even in
Oh
this
yeah.
particular case.
Yep.
So the Voter Choice Foundation is is the lobbying arm, and that lobbying arm has been working in a number of states, and that lobbying arm currently has a bill going through Rhode Island to reduce ballot access. And that arm had been working with state legislators in Wyoming, where Wyoming put forth on the floor a bill for proportional representation inside the state of Wyoming, which was one of the first bills ever introduced for proportional representation inside of a state.
Okay, can you explain that? What is
Yeah.
proportional representation?
Yeah. So, okay. And we kind of had this in my voters' bill of rights on my presidential campaign. This was sort of one piece of it. Right now, it's federally. If you wanted to do this at the federal level, it's illegal. They've made it illegal to have multi-member districts. So in California, you have 54 state representatives, but you could have instead of having 54 different districts all gerrymandered to hell, you could have like 5 districts of 10 people each. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you have the people vote, and the proportion of the vote goes to those representatives of those parties. So if the Democrats are 40% of the vote, they get 40% of the representation. If the Republicans are 30% of the vote, they get 30% of the representation. And if the rest are independents, Green Party, Libertarian, whatever, then they finally get represented. They have a seat at the table, right? And so this makes it much more even. And it's proportional representation is basically the end of gerrymandering. It gets rid of gerrymandering. There'll still be a little bit of gerrymandering because they can still,
Sure.
do those districts, but it makes it much harder for them to gerrymander. And because it's a group of people, you're not really gerrymandering for a specific individual, which makes it much easier for them to rig the game, right, so to speak. And so that's basically proportional representation. Is you get the same amount. So in California, as an example, right now, Democrats I think are like 42% of the vote, but they have 80 something percent of the representation in Congress.
Oh yeah.
So it's and then the same thing in Texas. They gerrymander so that they have more red people than is what is right, and then they all yell back and forth. Well, we had to do it because the other guy did it. And I'm like, well, you guys started this 100 years ago, and last time I checked, when I told my mom, well, Johnny's doing it, that didn't fly with mom. And mom said, I don't care what you're doing. You got to behave and get your crap together and stop being a jerk. And so that's my message to these guys. And in fact, that's one of the things that kind of pushed me to running, is that my congressman here that I'm running against, Jimmy Panetta, was all about Prop 50, which was basically gerrymandering California. And, their excuse was, well, we have to do it because other guy bad, so we got to be bad. And I'm like, no, whatever happened to that whole thing you guys used to say, we take the high road when they take the low road? I guess that went out the window. It only works when it's working for you, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as legislation goes to implement a multi-member district, where are we at there?
Yeah, so the a couple of the people that we were working with had kind of put the bill together. It's kind of complex. It's too much to go into, right here. But you can literally go look up the bill in Wyoming. Just look up for like a proportional representation bill in Wyoming, and it'll come up because it was just discussed, a short time ago. There's a lot of mechanics to it. And to be honest with you, there was a lot of iterations of it, and I don't know exactly what iteration they ended up settling on in the exact bill. So I can't really exactly speak to that, but yeah.
Yeah, is there any appetite with Republicans and Democrats to be able to push this bill forward? I would think that they like keeping their power and they don't want to share it with anyone, especially the minorities. The thing is about libertarianism is we believe in the ultimate minority, the power of the individual.
Yes.
And even though Democrats might pay lip service to the minority, they don't really believe in the minority because they believe in the power of the majority at the ballot box. And
100%.
As long as they get 50.01% of the vote, that's their mandate to push whatever agenda that they have forward.
100%. So I went to Wyoming and got to meet with various people there in Wyoming. And what I found is a couple things. One, everybody there is a libertarian. They just happen to be running Republican or Democrat on their card. Even the Democrats are libertarians there. It's like, and they're I don't know. They're not. I don't think there's Democrats in Wyoming. I think that they're like left leaning Republicans basically. But
did you run into Marshall Burt?
I did.
He was
no, I didn't. No, I didn't run into Marshall Burt. No, he wasn't. Okay. He wasn't in the. But we discussed him, and for obvious reasons. But I really had a very enjoyable time there. I felt that the people in Wyoming were super authentic, way more than the crazy people that I have here in California. I talked to people that, and like I talked to some of the state legislators there, and two of them said something that I'd never heard in politics before. And what they said was, I said, well, how do you know, how do you vote? How do you know how to vote in these different, situations or whatever? And they said, Lars, I'm not voting my conscience. I'm voting what the people that elected me want. I represent them.
Oh,
Wait, what? What are you talking about right now? I've never heard such a thing out of a politician. It's like, usually you think, oh, I get elected, I have the mandate, I'm going to go do what I think the people wanted me to do, or
sure.
maybe not, maybe what my lobbyists want me to do, or maybe what the donor wants me to do, as the case may be. But these people, they really, I felt like they were ethical and had, and they really cared, and I think they had a different take on stuff. And so one of the things that Wyoming people really care about is they have great pride in their counties. Okay.
Mhm.
And they used to have county voting, basically. And there was, through a bunch of machinations and judges and whatever, that was taken away from them. And they believe in their county so much that every license plate in Wyoming has the county in which the car is registered at.
Interesting.
They're
Okay.
very much localized, pride in their community, pride in their local thing, and they are very libertarian in the sense that they just want to be left alone,
Yeah.
right? And so this resonates with people in Wyoming because they don't want government up in their business every 5 seconds, right? This is a perfect place for this to be. And so it resonates with the citizens. The citizens want representation to their local level, and this proportional representation basically gives them that back, that was stolen from them by the judicial branch and by the politicians that took
Mhm.
it from them. And so I think there's a groundswell of people, the actual constituents that will be voting, that are driving this out. And Voting Rights Foundation ran a lot of ads in Wyoming talking about what proportional representation is, and how it affects people. Obviously, we didn't talk about the bill. We didn't push for any legislation because we're a 501c3, but we did let educate people on what those kind of things look like. And I think it was very successful because we got a lot of feedback from not only just residents, but also people that could make decisions, that said they saw the advertising and it moved them, basically.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can get that implemented somewhere.
Yeah.
Wyoming would be great. We need something to start the catalyst.
Hmm.
Something as the catalyst to get it going, to get it moving. Because I believe, you know, we do need to have a more proportional representation in our politics, right? There's so many minority groups.
Yep.
When I say minority groups, I mean like libertarians and Greens and even socialists or
And just independent,
constitutionalists and
just independent.
independents, right?
You know,
That aren't represented.
That's right. Honestly, I've told a lot of people this, and it's true for me. Um, if there was no ballot access issues at all, if ballot access was the same for everybody, because right now, if you run as a Democrat or Republican, you have different rules to get on the ballot
Mhm.
than you do if you're a libertarian. What is that?
Yeah.
That is some crap right there. Is like, no, the rules should be the same. Like, if you work at a gas station, you want to run for office, you should be able to. You shouldn't be gate kept by the two-party system, but they literally rig the rules so that the rules are different. But if there was no ballot access, I probably would just run as an independent,
Mhm.
honestly. Right? The reason why you need political parties to a certain degree, well, obviously for money and for press and that sort of thing, but a big part of it is ballot access, right? And so it's like I can have all my same viewpoints and not have to identify as any party, basically, right? So if there was, I would prefer no parties. I know that's not going to happen, so I'm a libertarian because it's the closest thing to what I am. I would say I'm like 95%, in line with libertarian national party, thought process, basically.
Sure. Well, the thing is, like, if we didn't have the barriers to entry, right, we could have a whole lot more people running on what they believe
That's right.
and not, kowtowing to the major political parties. But I think that's also the same reason why we still have the major political parties, because those barriers exist. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like we have to go through them and get their approval.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm in Washington State, you're in California. We are Democratic controlled supermajority states,
Yep.
right? The Republicans have no power in
Zero.
either of our states.
That's right.
The Democrats have a supermajority. Anything that they want passed goes through. And the pushback that the Republicans have is just like very minor
Mm-hmm.
at best. It's like
At
the
best.
Democrats are throwing them like crumbs to even be able to talk on the House floor or the Senate floor,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, here's your 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Treating them like toddlers. And that's not democracy. I don't think it should be democracy.
No. Once again, no competition at all, right? And
Nope.
I know in your state, like mine, the Democrats basically will still try to blame the Republicans for the failures of the state.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
no, it's because the Republicans are doing
It's
bad
Trump.
things. And I'm like, hold on a minute. You guys are supermajority. You run everything for 40 years. If your state sucks, it's because you suck, not because any Republican sucks. I mean, the Republicans do suck, but they didn't have anything to do with your failure. So, just stop with the nonsense and own your failure at least. I mean, the hypocrisy in the left and the right is just, and the spin and the propaganda, and it's just getting so much worse too with AI and the ability to spin up stuff and the speed of information. I don't know if you saw this. There was another. You remember there was like this video where there was like all these different TV and talk show people were talking, and they all said basically the same thing. Every news channel said the same thing over and over. You saw that, right? Well, there's a new one out, and I don't know if it's AI because AI can make anything these days, but there's a new one out essentially talking about the Iran war that we're in right now. And it says that, something along the lines of a little sacrifice now is worth the long term.
I shared that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, that might be AI.
Sacrifice now for long-term goals.
And it was the same thing over and over and over again. And whether that's AI or not, the idea is true. That there is basically embedded in every news organization, in every social media organization, government. We know this to be true because we saw it during COVID. We saw it come out that the government had installed agents inside these companies, had direct access to the throttles to basically turn people off, turn people's messaging off. Right? These are private companies, so you can't stop. You can't. There's no freedom of speech because you're using the product at your will, and it's not a government agency. Yep. But if the government agency is controlling the speech inside these organizations, then is it a First Amendment issue? I think it is, right? Yeah. I think it is. Now, if the company on their own said you don't get to talk, well, then you don't get to talk. But if the government tells the company, we don't want that guy to talk, that's a First Amendment issue, right? And I don't know why somebody hasn't sued. Maybe I should sue. Maybe I should sue Facebook and Twitter and all these guys, because I certainly am shadow banned. And I know, and I know lots of people who are. I know lots of people who lose their accounts all the time. I was just on a show the other day on YouTube. We were doing a fundraiser for You Are the Power, and in the middle of the fundraiser, YouTube, removed the video. And this was a fundraiser for an organization that's doing great stuff. There was no cursing, there was no bad stuff, and they just decided something in the content wasn't what they wanted, and they just pulled the plug on it. And I'm pretty sure I know what it was, and I'm pretty sure it was very much political and politically charged. And I'm not going to go into all those details, but they're still doing it. Nothing was learned from the COVID cover-up stuff that was going on, and the government's back in there just happily, suppressing people. And so, I mean, the media is complicit in all of this, and it makes sense because, look, libertarians don't get in debates. Libertarians don't get in polls. Why is that? Oh, well, I can tell you why. Because the Democrats and Republicans give hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to the TV stations and the radio stations and the polling companies.
It's all pay to play.
It's all pay to play. So,
Yeah.
like, of course, you're not going to get new. Like, they're like, well, how come we never see you in the news, Lars? Like, well, the reason you don't see me in the news is because I didn't spend $100 million on this stuff. In fact, because I know that it's not really that winnable of an election. You get. I had to pay money. I paid $4,500 to have a speech in the ballot pamphlet, right? Like the voter
What?
guide. Yeah, the voter guide. Yeah,
$4,500?
yeah. And that was just for my county, by the way. And I'm representing 4 counties, so it'd have been about $16,000 or $20,000 to do it in all the counties, just to have this printed material in there, which is asinine as it is. But anyway,
Yeah.
the thing is in that my opening line is, I'm not accepting donations because I don't want anybody to say I was bought. Like, oh, well, Lars, you're saying you don't like the Iran war and you don't think that we should be giving money to any outside foreign entity or country. Well, hell no, we shouldn't be doing that. We're $39 trillion in debt. Why are we giving my money and your money and my kids' money and my future grandkids' money away to some foreign country halfway across the land? And why are we using that money to drop bombs on kids when we literally have people who are homeless and people who are struggling to make ends meet in America, and we're just burning billions, if not trillions of dollars overseas on literally creating more problems that we're going to have to solve in another 20 years? Because that's all we're really doing here. It's not like we're solving anything. Everybody's like, oh, well, we had to go into Iran because it's, there are bad people there. And I'm like, well, if we went and gone into Iran in the 70s and screwed everything up, it'd probably be a lot better than it is today. So we're just fixing the problem that we screwed up before. And by fixing, I mean, we're dropping bombs and killing kids in little schools and, killing people all over the place. And our soldiers are dying and we're burning money to the freaking ground. Don't even get me started. These guys are just clowns, man. It just pisses me off. So anyway, if you want to know a position, there's a position.
Yeah, so we're 7 minutes over our normal time right now. And Lars, I love Chase. Chase is a friend of mine, but I really wish it was you that got the nomination back then and were the presidential candidate. But I'm glad you're running now, and I hope you continue with what you're doing. I'm glad you stuck on board with the Libertarian Party, and I'm excited to see what you do in the future. Do you want to share the ballot access website? It's votingrights.com, correct?
Yeah, votingrights.com, exactly.
Yeah, so if you like what Lars is doing, go to votingrights.com. You can sign up to join them and donate. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And particularly our Voter Choice Foundation, what we're really looking for is champions in each state who have gotten legislation put in front of their state houses. So if you know somebody that is good at lobbying, that knows how to do that, the Voter Choice Foundation would love that info. And you can contact me, Lars at Mapstead.com, or you can go on my Twitter at Libertarian Lars, or my Facebook, Lars for President, and message me, and I'll get you hooked up with the right people to help with reducing ballot access so that we can reduce political violence in America. Because I think if we don't fix this, eventually one election is going to be so damning that we're going to have bloodshed in America, and I don't want to see that. So that's what I'm working on, is to stop the bloodshed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Lars. I appreciate you coming on the show and appreciate you running for office and continuing to fight for liberty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.